Hello everyone, this is Koji from Celestial Rhythms. Well, I would like to give you a little update here as we're heading into the real core of the battle in the next 2-3 months, and astrology definitely mirrors that very beautifully, very powerfully, and I already can give you a little preview. It will all end well. The big thing which I discovered is that heliocentrically, energetically, Jupiter and Saturn will have their conjunction, their 20-year cycle coming to completion on November the 2nd. I was quite thrilled when I saw that. This is just on the eve of the American elections, and sure enough one can see that this is a new beginning. I guess you wouldn't have guessed that. It's pretty obvious. It's pretty clear. So astrology again wonderfully just confirms that. So we're in the end phase of this 20-year cycle, and already in 2015 I had spoken of that we were getting into the end phase, the fourth quarter. The last 90 degrees of a cycle is the critical part when there's a readjustment happening, when we do our homework and figure out what has gone wrong, what has to be adjusted and brought to balance for the new cycle to be in a better place. And that 5 years between 2015 roughly till the end of 2020, that is that transitional phase, which was foreseeable to be a very conflicting, difficult, controversial and highly complex period of time. All these planets are in Capricorn, where the culmination happens. Capricorn, the sign of power, the 10th zodiacal sign if you start with Aries, which means it's also related to government and greater power structure. It's about crystallization of material energy. It's ruled by Saturn. Saturn is in this sign since 2017, December to be exact, 2017, and has been for a short time, for a couple months or so, in Aquarius already earlier this year, and is now in its final loop here in Capricorn, to then in sync with Jupiter, which is here. In sync they will be moving into Aquarius. As seen from Earth's perspective, it will be just around Winter Solstice again, Winter Solstice 2020 this time. However, energetically, heliocentrically, Saturn also already changes into Aquarius on September the 3rd, while Jupiter pulls even into that new energetic background on October the 12th, and they will meet it at in the second degree. I show you quickly here. This is the heliocentric chart on the 2nd of November. Saturn and Jupiter will have their rebirth of a new cycle. These are the two giant planets of our solar system. They are mirroring big societal and global changes, economic and such. The whole functioning of society is mirrored by these two planets. Jupiter, the expansive force, Saturn, the one which structures and puts in limitations and in a balance. Those two are the foundation of societal developments. Through the last 2 centuries, just quickly want to throw this in, Jupiter and Saturn had all their conjunctions, mutual meetings in Earth signs, in Capricorn, Virgo or Taurus, which, as I guess everybody can see that was a very materialistic time. Earth signs naturally tending to be too much identified with the material side of our reality. For the next 2 centuries, pretty much starting with December 2020, these 2 giant planets will meet in air signs again. This is a 800-year cycle all in all. So for the next 200 years roughly, Jupiter and Saturn will express themselves through Aquarius, Gemini and Libra, which are air signs, which is all about communication and exchange. It is in line with that whole idea of the new Aquarian Age, also the integration of us Earthlings into a way greater alliance of star nations, which is on the horizon. Everybody who's done some research will be knowing what I'm talking about. So this is all to come. The big doorstep, kind of the moment when we really enter the new energy, will be around December 2020, end of December, winter solstice. Naturally, this is just the beginning, and then slowly this all will start rolling out. So anyway, that's kind of the place we are heading to. Now let's head back to where we are right now, as I wanted to give you a little bit of a fill-in of what we can expect between now and then. So this is today. Mercury and the Sun had their upper conjunction. This is a 4-month cycle. Mercury, Sun and Earth's mutual dance. If you would think this is Earth, actually, this is the Sun and this is Mercury. So Mercury is right now behind the Sun from our point of view, and in 2 months time Mercury will be exactly between Sun and Earth again, which is the center period of the center point of the retrograde period. So the upper conjunction is the peak of the Mercury energy expressing itself. It is when we have the clearest target in our vision where things are going. It's a refocusing, in a way, realigning. That's what's happening today. Interesting is that the moon in Leo 2, actually that is the American nation's north node, the evolutionary direction the American nation is moving along. Here you see it. This is the American chart's north node at 6 degrees 35, so that's very close. And the moon represents the people in a mundane chart, particularly if we speak of a nation. It's the mood, the overall sentiment which connects us all, the oversoul of the nation in that sense. So the moon is indicative here that yes, it's a power back to the people. That's kind of the keynote on that. And naturally, Leo being the sign of sovereignty and of freedom and of personal expression, creativity, doing what we are meant to do on this planet, to express ourselves and be ourselves. So this is the greater theme. Now, what's really the difficulties we are facing right now is this ongoing square between Mars, mainly here towards the end of Aries, and Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto. Mars has been entering Aries already a few months ago. It will come to a station. That means it's also lining up with Sun and Earth in Mars case, it is that Earth will move between Mars and the Sun, which makes Mars appear going backwards for about 7 weeks. That happens roughly every 26 months. So Mars will turn retrograde on September the 9th and go backward for roughly 2 months till November 13th, to then regain forward motion and leave Aries, its own sign of dominion and forceful expression of its own powers and intentions. So this is a very Martian time, if you want. All those 7 months roughly, Mars is in Aries. So the big conflict here is between Mars and Saturn, and they're both in their own signs. Mars-Saturn square is a traditionally very difficult combination of energies. It is about coming to the breaking point and then either breaking through or breaking down. That's in a nutshell said. Mars-Saturn can have extreme expressions of conflict, war, and outright, as I say, breakdown, breakthrough. I guess it's all circling around that. Now, what even exacerbates that whole theme is the black moon here also in this area, and Eris, the Greek goddess of discord, is what this body was named after. Eris has challenged Pluto to lose its planetary status. That was back in 2006, and Pluto all of a sudden found himself to be no more categorized as a planet. That was due to Eris' appearance on the scene, as this minor planet is at that time was thought to be bigger than Pluto. Meanwhile, we have found that it's about same. Anyway, that was one of the expressions of Eris. Eris brings discord, brings all the conflicts up into the open to have us sorted out and eventually reach a higher level of harmony and accord. So discord is necessary in that sense, evolutionary, to reach a higher level of harmony. Mars today, August 17, is pretty exactly aligned with Eris. Just have to swallow something was in my mouth. So anyway, we have here Mars, Eris, and the black moon squaring Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter. This is going on for many more weeks. So we can't expect things to change immediately. It's really that crescendo of that spiritual war we're in, and you certainly all know what I'm talking about. It is that deep state takedown which is happening as we speak, has gone into its final stages, as Q had given us in post 26 that was on October 31st 2017, one of the first Q posts, speaking of marker 11.3, which would initiate the final phase of this operation. And those of you who have heard that already, I will share it anyway. 11.3 is the letters K, is letter 11, letter C is the third letter, so KC is Kevin Kleinsmith, and I guess that's pretty clear. Kevin Kleinsmith, who has been cooperating, is the beginning of that first phase of removing the deep state, which will really wake up the public in big ways when all these big names, Comey, Brennan and so, will be indicted, which in my understanding will happen before the elections, most likely between mid-September and mid-October. So we're still a few weeks away from that. I want to quickly go back here. I have a few charts here I wanted to include in this presentation. This is the chart which I'm using as the prediction chart for a half-year period between July 4th and January 4th, 2021. That was when Earth was farthest away from Earth on July 4th, which happens to coincide with the American nation's birthday, which in itself is very special. It shows the powerful date which was chosen, intentionally or not. It just happens to be that way. So on that day, you see the black moon and Eris were here in midheaven, 20 degrees Aries. That's where the American nation's Chiron is. It's this Chiron here, 20 degrees Aries, Juno opposition, which I have repeatedly spoken about, which is that healing of the division which has been seeded into the nation, which we are seeing in real time coming to a resolution, which has been accentuated very strongly in this chart of July 4th. If we now go back to today's chart, so here we have the chart for Greenwich, which is the global chart. Interesting, in this chart, globally, the focal point is the 13th degree of Sagittarius. And look what we find here. That's the American nation's ascendant, the 13th, 14th degree of Sagittarius. So there's lots of hints that yes, the big battle is going to be fought and won mainly in the United States. That will be the starting point for the big global changes that are coming one step at a time. It won't happen all at once. So this is now the same moment today, August 17, when Mercury had its upper conjunction with the Sun as calculated for Washington, D.C. And again, you see the 21st degree of Libra, this time rising, the 21st degree of Aries at the 7th house cusp. Again, that Juno Chiron opposition of the American nation's birth chart in the focus. And by the way, the American nation will also have a Juno return in less than 2 weeks. So Juno is particularly powerfully coming into play over these next few weeks. Has been already, as Juno has been in this sign Libra already for quite a few months. So this is just coming to a new level of awareness of that process of resolving all these issues. And sure, at first it will get difficult and more dark. As you can see here, Juno is heading into the opposition with the black moon, with Mars, with Pluto, with Saturn. So the struggle is going on. So this is definitely, we are not at the end of the battle, we're right in the middle of it right now, which naturally is making sense with what I just spoke about, the Mars square with Saturn and Pluto, which is an ongoing feature for the next 2-3 months or even beyond that. So I have a few more charts here I wanted to quickly run by. This is when Mars will station on September 9. What stands out here in this chart is again the 25th degree of Leo. That is where the Sun and Mercury meet today. Just want to go back to this. You see this is 2509 Leo, that's today. So whatever is today seeded, started, put into place, if you want to say, is going to be fully activated after the 9th of September. So this is a slow process. It's like a slow motion wave which is rolling in our humanity, awakening us, bringing us back to our senses. And there's many small episodes, small steps in that. I'm just kind of picking here the nodal points in this big unfolding pattern. What I have here is the midpoint chart between the Mars station and the American People's chart. What stands out here is for Washington, calculated the Mars station, and the American chart is calculated for Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where the nation was founded. So the midpoint time space is what is used here in this technique, and this is the American nation's Sun at 1319 Cancer, which is here exactly at the 7th house cusp. Makes total sense. It's again all coming down to the people taking back the power. Interesting detail here, the 2959 Aries moon, showing this is at the very height of criticality, just short before entering a new sign. That's one of the most critical points. So it clearly shows we're at that point then by early September at the most chaotic time, if you want, and that will certainly be the whole 7 weeks. Mars is going backwards, so it's important to hold the ground, to know, to have that outlook beyond the horizon, that things are definitely on the right track, and we have to just wait it out and do whatever we can and hold the energy high and be creative and work in whatever way we can to help this process to go smooth without major issues and disruptions. This now is the next moment of the Mars energy squaring Saturn. That will be on September 29. That is the second square of Mars and Saturn, probably the most critical one. Why I brought this out is this is here Mars 2520 Aries, 2520 Saturn in Capricorn. So that's just that moment when these two planets are exactly 90 degrees apart. The Sun will by that time be at 7 degrees Libra, exactly opposing Chiron. How could that be? And again, a wonderful cosmic synchronicity at the height of crisis, at the height of exposure of what's wrong, because that's what Chiron is about. Chiron is the doctor, in that sense, the shaman, but first, before the wound can be healed, it has to be opened and cleaned, and this is a painful process of exposing all which is wrong, bringing it to the light, and then healing can start setting in, not before that. That's the sequence. Interesting further in this chart is the moon here in Pisces, close to Neptune. And this is the American nation's progressed sun is in this area, 15-16 degree. So it's again a indication that there's a circle coming to its completion, the moon catching up to the progressed sun. There's certainly a lot more going on in this chart. I don't want to go too deep. I want to show you a few more charts here. Rather, this is the midpoint chart of that moment we just spoke of, the Mars-Saturn second square with the American nation Sun. What stands out here is the Jupiter-Venus conjunction, exactly in the same spot where the Sun is on that day. So that is a further indication that healing is on its way. On October 13th, then, that is the midpoint of the retrograde phase of Mars, when Mars at 21 degrees Libra, again that 21, remember what I spoke about, that is the American Chiron Juno axis. So Mars 21 Aries, Sun 21 Libra, and Earth is in between. That is planet Earth, squaring Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter. And this chart calculated for Washington for that moment exactly brings Saturn and Pluto into the center of the sky, into zenith. Very powerful again, wonderful synchronicity. Saturn and Pluto really started that final phase of this huge shift and conflict, pushing to the climax in January when they had their conjunction, which is a 30+ year cycle. They're still very close from each other, and that whole year certainly is under that energy of Pluto and Saturn, which is a deep conflict which has to be worked out. Pluto, also described as the Lord of the underworld, Lord Shiva, who first comes in and destroys the old to make space for the new. Saturn, all the rotten structures which have to be removed, but also initiating the new and the better structure over top, and rebuilding and crystallizing what is worth saving and keeping. So this is a deep and complex and certainly also painful rebirth. I guess that's the word which definitely qualifies for that whole year we're in. It's that cocoon phase where everything is dissolved, where nothing is for certain, everything is going back to a primordial state of chaos to be magically from inside out, from the grassroots up, to recrystallize and then be born into a new magical order, like a butterfly coming out of the cocoon, which we will see starting to happen probably in the first months of 2021. I mean, it will already be clearly set for everyone by early November after the elections, which 100%, I have said that already in early 2017 when I looked at charts, will be won by Donald Trump. So there's no question in that, never has been. He is the man who will bring us all together eventually, regardless of all the attempts to derail the process and whatever. So this is again showing the criticality of the time. This will be mid-October. This is just 20 days before the elections. This is the midpoint chart again between that Mars synodic cycle starts. A synodic cycle is when a planet realigns with the Sun. This is particularly used for Mars, Mercury and Venus when they align with the Sun, as from Earth's point of view. So Mars synodic cycle with the American people's natal chart, the midpoint, and who would have guessed Uranus and the Moon here in midheaven in the first degree of Sagittarius. This is a very feisty energy. Freedom is the goal, liberation, sovereignty, standing up for our rights. Sagittarius, particularly with the Moon in it, is a very revolutionary sign. Interesting also that in this chart the Sun is in the first degree of Virgo, Earth first degree of Pisces, T-squaring that Moon and Uranus. And this is also the place where Regulus is. That's President Trump's ascendant, where Regulus is. Regulus, one of the fastest rotating stars close to our solar system. A powerful vortex in space, also known as Alpha Leonis, or the heart of the lion. Now, just quickly, I want to go here back to this chart, which I already mentioned, the heliocentric Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which, as I said, is the real energetic beginning of the new cycle. It will be another 8 weeks or so before these two planets line up from Earth's perspective, also in the new sign of Aquarius. However, this is the energetic change, and heliocentric astrology, we have to understand, that's the energy which comes from the Sun, which feeds us all the photons, electrons, which is our basic food. If the Sun would stop producing energy within 8 minutes, it would be totally dark here, and within hours everything would be gone, frozen. Earth would be a lifeless planet if the Sun would not constantly nourish it with its warmth and its quantum energy particles, which each in itself contains that energetic blueprint of what the Sun's latest information download is. So that's why heliocentric astrology is so primarily important. It is the spiritual aspect of astrology, if you want. What is interesting is also that on that day we have a very close Sun Uranus, sorry I said wrong, Earth Uranus conjunction. Uranus being the planet which is said to rule Aquarius. This is a double whammy which says yes, this Uranian energy is definitely starting to materialize and manifest in big ways new manifestations of how we can harness energy. That's one of the expressions. Tesla has Uranus and Pluto both in Taurus. That's another one which I have been mentioning repeatedly. Tesla as a key player in all that is coming. He was probably the first one to make us aware that it's way more possible than we would humanly think possible. And as many of you know, he was in contact with extraterrestrials. Lots of his ideas were given to him. So he was a messenger. He was ahead of his time. But as we are now in that window of all that becoming real, this is a very encouraging sign that yes, there is a very strong pull into that direction which cannot be avoided anymore. This is a 100% certain timeline we are moving on. This is the same moment as seen on from Earth, that same moment when heliocentric Jupiter and Saturn were aligned. And you see here, as seen from Earth's perspective, Jupiter is at 21 degrees Aquarius, Capricorn still, Saturn at 26 Capricorn. So from Earth's perspective, Jupiter has still to fully pull even with Saturn, and as Saturn also moves, that will be at 0 degrees 39 Aquarius on December the 20th. This is the midpoint chart of that Helio-Jupiter-Saturn conjunction of the American nation, and what I want to just show here again is the 13th degree of Cancer, the American nation's sun. I guess I mentioned that already. Okay, so it is a wild and bumpy ride we have ahead of us. Knowing where we're going helps. So I really hope that this gave you a little bit of a clear vision of where it's going, and keep your spirits up and happy regardless of all the wrenches which are thrown into the engines and all the disruptions we are facing. It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. It will pay out big time if we are strong and keeping up to who we are and not giving in and not bending in the light of conflict. Thank you so much for listening, and if you like that, give it a thumbs up, and talk to you soon again. I love you all.